Let's make a $10 Thanksgiving feast from the Dollar Tree using a 9x13 pan. Let's get started. We're gonna get a few ingredients from the Dollar Tree, 8 to be exact. Now that Dollar Tree is $1.25, that equals out to $10. Here are all our ingredients. We got a package of mini marshmallows, these ham trimmings, which I'm interested to see how they turn out and how they are. I've never had them before. I also got a can of cream of mushroom soup, a can of French green beans, some mashed potatoes, turkey stuffing, which this stuffing you can get at the Dollar Tree, but my Dollar Tree was out, and a can of corn and a can of yams. I'm also going to be using a little bit of margarine and some salt and pepper as freebies. I'm also going to be using these ingredients to doctor things up a little bit more. Some cinnamon, onion powder, Worcestershire sauce, and a little bit of imitation vanilla. Now we're going to get started prepping our pan. We're going to be lining it with tin foil. You're going to use double the amount of tin foil as the size of your pan because we're going to be folding it up a little bit so that it has ridges so everything kind of stays separate in little pockets within the pan and doesn't run all together. First, you're going to wrap it around one side of the pan, then press it into the pan and make sure that it's flush up against all the edges. And then once you get about a third of the way into the pan, you're going to just kind of squinch everything together and make a little ridge like this. And you're going to do a second ridge as you go along just a little bit further into the pan, so you're going to end up with 3 sections in the pan, and it will look like this once you've finished up. Now we're going to get started on the second sections. For these, you're going to take a smaller piece of the aluminum foil and you're going to pinch it in the middle, so that way you have another section in the middle and you'll end up with 6 sections in all. Now to make all the food, we're going to drain our French style green beans and dump those into a bowl. We're going to add in the cream of mushroom soup, and you can add in a little bit of Worcestershire, about a teaspoon is what I added, and then just a healthy pinch of salt and pepper. And you're going to give all of this a good stir and then dump this into your first section. When I had this in mind, I wanted to have a little bit of leftover, so when you see me dumping things in, you're gonna see that not everything fits into the section, and that's alright, because the only thing that really needs to cook in the oven later on is going to be the ham. The remaining servings of everything is going to be able to be put into 2 separate containers so that we can both have leftovers of this meal one time. If you've been with me a little bit, you probably already know, but it's just me and my husband right now, and if you see me making big meals, it's for our game night on the weekends. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this stuffing mixture, about 1/8 of a cup, and then we're going to stick it in a bag and just mash it with this meat mallet, because we didn't get the traditional onion toppings that you would put on top of the green bean casserole, because that would have been an extra $1.25, which of course you can spend and get that because Dollar Tree does have it. But I went ahead and decided to make this as a little bit of a crunchy topping for the top of our green bean casserole. I went ahead and sprinkled this on top, and then I took just a little bit of onion powder and sprinkled that on top as well, just to give that oniony flavor that we would be missing from the French fried onions that you normally stick on top. Now, part of the reason why I wanted to put everything into a 9x13 pan was because it's a lot easier to fit a 9x13 pan into the oven. A lot of times if I'm making a Thanksgiving dinner for a big crowd, one of the issues I have is everything needs to be reheated up right before being served, and sometimes that can be difficult to fit everything into your oven. So having it all in one pan makes it really easy to have everything in the oven and ready to go. Now I went ahead and made up the stuffing mix. I just followed the directions on the back of the box, which called for 1/4 of a cup of margarine and I think 1.5 cups of water. and you just bring it to a boil and dump the mixture, the stuffing mixture in, and stir it around and fluff it up. I went ahead and put it into one of our sections in our dish. Now, as I did say, I used the Great Value stuffing brand in the end, but I have seen before a lot of times at the Dollar Tree they have stuffing. I went to 2 different Dollar Trees, they didn't have it, and I wasn't about to spend gas to drive to a third one, so that was it. I went ahead and used what I had on hand. Now we're gonna focus on making our corn. As you can see, we drained the can. I went ahead and added in a tablespoon of melted butter and then just added some salt and pepper. We're keeping it pretty simple for a lot of these dishes, just kind of keeping it to the bare minimum because I know that I'm trying to whip this up really quickly, which this whole meal ended up taking about an hour, and that was with filming. So I could imagine it would take maybe 30 minutes without filming. It does sit and bake for about 25 to 30 minutes, so it takes a little bit longer than that, I suppose, after you put it in the oven. But I went ahead and dumped that corn in, as you can see, and then I started working on our mashed potatoes. I did not have milk for the mashed potatoes, but if you wanted to have a milk substitute, you could use some of that cream of mushroom soup instead of adding all of it to the green beans, and that would probably work really well in the mashed potatoes as a little bit of a milk substitute, unless you actually just have milk on hand. I went ahead and did not do any milk, and I haven't missed it. I did add a little extra water since I didn't have the milk in it, and added the salt and pepper, well, the salt I guess, and the butter into it, or the margarine. Then I put in a little bit of the mashed potatoes into our pan, and that was finished as well. Next up, we're doing our sweet potatoes. I did drain off all of the juice, the syrup that's in the sweet potatoes, but afterwards I kind of wished I hadn't, because it would have gone really well if I had poured some of it onto our ham, because I found the ham later on was very salty and needed a little bit of a sweet flavor added to it. So that's one of my recommendations. I would recommend reserving some of the juice aside to pour onto the ham. I added a dash of cinnamon and about a teaspoon, or actually maybe more like a half a teaspoon of vanilla flavoring, and then I added in my marshmallows. I just added in about 1/8 of a cup of marshmallows into the mixture. I did use my scissors, as you saw, to cut up the sweet potatoes a little bit, and then gave it all a good mix and dumped it into one of my sections. I did try to make sure the sections would go well with whatever dish was right next to them, just in case it did bleed over flavor wise to each other. But the sections held up actually really nicely, and I actually didn't have any bleeding over or leaking of flavors from one to another. I did add a few more marshmallows on top of this dish, and then added a little dash of cinnamon as well on top. Now to get started on our ham. This ham, I was interested to see how it looked inside, because outside it definitely looked very much like a ham, I guess. I don't know what else to say about it. But it was very hard, so I was interested to see if it would soften up, which I would say the meat afterwards was fairly salty and also kind of tough. It's kind of what I would expect from a Dollar Tree standard of ham, but it was still good with the rest of the dishes. I think it was nothing to write home about, but it was decent still. So I add a little bit of cinnamon on top. It would have been good again with that yam juice on top as well to help with the saltiness, but I put it in the oven at 350 degrees for about 25 minutes, and this is what it looks like once we took it out. The ham did say to bake it until it was 165 degrees internally, which I did, and here is our end result. I did cover everything and just to make sure that nothing dried out, but you can see our casserole is nice and thick and delicious, and Our ham is well cooked now, and we got a little bit of brown on those marshmallows because when I first put it in, I did keep the lid off for a few minutes before thinking better of it and deciding to put a lid on. Here's our plate of well plated up. You can see we've got a full plate, and there's still that second serving for my husband as well. Not bad at all for only taking $10 and getting all our ingredients from the Dollar Tree. I hope you enjoyed this one and that this gives you a little bit of Thanksgiving inspiration if you've only got a small crowd this Thanksgiving, and I hope to see you all in the next one.